Wonderful. So, look, when we talk about corporate wellness, I just thought it's worthwhile spending a little bit of time understanding it, the vast spread of what we really talk about, because the different kind of organizations understand this very differently. And when we talk from the perspective of interventions, when we talk from the perspective of expertise, or when we really look at it from the perspective of what really ideally we should look after, then I think it's good to get a bird's eye view, and that's what I've really tried to do. So the way I look at it is that a corporate wellness or organizational wellness really has four key dimensions. Two out of them are individual dimensions, which to my mind is more of the individual physical wellness, the individual emotional wellness, and I'll come to that a little later. How do we define that? But also more importantly, the workplace, there is also a component of workplace wellness, which is more about the collective wellness at the workplace. And there both the physical systems, the social systems, the human beings, the leadership, they all have a role to play. And then of course, wellness discussion is complete without understanding the emergent needs of the people at the workplace, because today the workplace is not a very uniform demography. There are very different kinds of demographies, and we are really looking at different strokes for different folks. And how does that play out? So when we really look at physical wellness, I think primarily we are looking at physical body related wellness aspects. So that really comes down to nutrition, exercise, sleep and rest. How well people are today in a typical private organization, private setup are able to balance these fundamental basic needs. Now, as far as nutrition is concerned, the way I see this is that a lot of big organizations where you have a fairly well-to-do corporate canteen, people are able to manage that well. But when it comes to a lot of smaller companies, ITS organizations, a lot of consulting companies, a lot of companies who are in the so-called SEZ also, you really do not have a lot of, what I call well-balanced Indian diet available. You may have a lot of fancy food available, you have a lot of sugar available, you have a lot of soft drinks that are available, you have a lot of baking goods products that are available, but fundamentally a balanced nutrition today, if you go to any corporate hub in Delhi, Gurgaon, NCR, Bangalore, all over the country, in fact, I mean, unless it's a fairly big organization which has invested in a fairly decent corporate canteen and has taken some time to identify the right kind of vendors, today the nutrition side of the corporate world is challenged. I see this challenge going to be there for a while because people are now working. So gone are the days when people used to work 9 to 6 or 10 to 7, something like that. Today people are spending 12 to 15 hours of work on an average just to ensure that they keep up the job and just grow year to year. So people are actually consuming more bad food and more junk. That's to me is a alarming thing, because of course you are not getting exercise a lot, even though there are gyms. And when you consume junk, it leads to several other lifestyle related wellness and illness challenges. And working disproportionately more, and of course now let me not talk about COVID. I think quite a bit of time has already been spent on that. But there, when you also spend time in commuting and all, the sleep patterns, the rest patterns goes for a toss. So I think the physical wellness is a significant challenge to my mind. The emotional wellness, today people are emotionally challenged because today all of us are leading complex lives, and due to personal reasons, professional reasons, due to career challenges, due to aspirational challenges, due to a very changing visibility of wealth in our immediate surrounding, I think there are many reasons for why people might have emotional challenge, and those relates to stress, anxiety, burnout at workplace. I mean, we know for a fact, as per a latest research, I mean, today you are having burnout issues in people who are in their mid 30s to early 40s, and earlier you used to have about 5 to 6 years before. Burnout is something that you really associated with a demography, maybe 50-55 upwards, but today burnout is a term that people utilize for people even in their mid 30s. Workplace wellness. What does workplace wellness is really about? I mean, the way I define workplace wellness is that the sum total of positive well-being that a workplace can generate. Now it has combination of factors playing into it. It has, of course, the physical, emotional side that we already discussed, but it also has a collective social side. That means as an organization, have we fostered the right kind of social behaviors? Have we fostered the right kind of teamworks? Do we consciously keep corporate politics away from the workplace? Do we discipline and kind of give a message to managers who, for instance, display toxic behaviors? And these are the aspects which combined together look at how well a overall workplace is perceived in terms of workplace wellness. And this is a very intangible feeling. You can't define it in terms of this many times you should wash hands, or this many times you should sort of do some analysis, but people intuitively feel it. And if this is a toxic workplace vis-a-vis a workplace which has very strong wellness aspects, you can see morale, motivation will be of a very different order, and attrition will be lower. People will bring more discretionary performance. I mean, there is a recent study which has happened world over, last year published, where it says that people bring 26% of discretionary performance. That means we are not asking them, or the boss or the manager or the promoter is not asking them to perform more. But because the workplace is in such a way that people are really motivated to do better for their workplaces. So I think that is called discretionary performance. And the moment the workplace wellness aspect is looked at in totality, that starts to grow. Now let's come to the demography and the emergent needs. Now, there was a time when you really had probably one or two generations working together in an organization. Today, that's not the case. Today, you have in the same organization people with various kinds of age groups, starting from early 20s to mid 30s to 50s, 60s. A whole lot of people are also post 60s are continuing to work as consultants, or for instance, in independent capacities, in part-time work environment. Also, the definition of workplace has also increased. For instance, today workplace not only includes your own company, but it also includes the partners, the contractors, the other organizations, your suppliers, your OEMs, your MSPs, and that also is a part of your wider, what I would call, corporate setup. And all of these aspects means that you really can't have a one-size-fits-all wellness approach. There has to be different strokes for different folks. Within that, millennials, especially people who are today in their 20s to 30s, they are a very vocal segment. They are an increasingly growing segment. They are a very highly productive segment. And this generation knows how to articulate its views. And this generation also knows to walk out of a workplace quickly if those issues are not being met. So these are the very different kind of dimensions which makes a wellness challenge important. And it is also a very important aspect of understanding it holistically. And it also makes the job of a corporate leader or a promoter or a managing director or a HR leader that much more difficult. So therefore, what are some of the structural angles to this? What are some of the response that one sees today, and how does really it all fills in together? So one of the things that I really see today, that the increasing cost of healthcare means that employees and organizations are sharing the insurance cost, sharing the elder care cost, sharing the parental health care cost, and in many ways, the preventive healthcare is a direct response to increasing cost of healthcare, where there's a lot of focus on preventing certain things from happening rather than how to do the best treatment after it has happened. So then, therefore, the pattern of lifestyle is basically now in focus. What are the kind of facilities that are available at the workplace? That's in focus. As Dasar very interestingly point out, I think he used a very interesting term, at a very superficial level compliance versus reality of certain workplace wellness and health dimensions. There I think it's very important to look at, if we have a certain budget for wellness, how are we spending it? For instance, I am very sort of fond of this example. I have most of the time seen companies spending a whole lot of money on a fancy, say for instance, creche or gym, which will not have a lot of utility in terms of sheer numbers, but companies don't spend in terms of putting good chairs, good ergonomic chairs. But the fact of the matter is that a good ergonomic chair today is available at a very, very reasonable rate, and employees likely utilize it more. And those kind of trade-off decisions has to be done intelligently. And I think that is where what Dhruv Sir was saying in terms of having a diagnostic framework is very, very helpful. The other trend that I see today is that the digital wellness side, where people are moving to manage and monitor their health care, their biostats, their blood pressures, then the different aspects of physiological wellness through sensor-based or digital monitors, or you can wear a watch. You can see how actually you are working out. Many organizations are promoting friendly competitions within their senior teams and colleagues just to see how it is working out. Then I think alternative therapies, I think for a long time we knew that yoga, Ayurveda, nature therapy, all of these things have existed for thousands of years. But today there is a very renewed interest in all of this. And I think therefore only one thing I would like to say here is that I think if an organization is utilizing some of these practitioners, they should really look at very good professionals, because what is happening today, because now some of these segments are become very popular within the larger population. Now more number of people today practice yoga and pranayama than let's say 20 years before, because and if I remember distinctly, when I was a child, there was actually a environment where many of our traditional therapy systems were discouraged. In fact, people used to prefer to pop a goli, but today people are really looking up and questioning their healthcare models, and they're really saying that if we can be well in an alternative approach, why not? Why not go preventive? So therefore, investing in the right kind of wellness professionals for organization is very critical, because there is a lot of people who are suboptimal and less professional, who are trying to simply cash in on the boom. Then you also have the counseling helplines where people could actually go and take care of a professional therapist. And I see today these are sort of increasing quite a bit. And that's a very welcome step, because traditionally in India as a society, we have always sort of tried to downplay this entire mental wellness challenges and the reality that mental wellness does exist. I mean, if tomorrow my leg breaks, I hope it doesn't. But the point is that if it does break, I'm not shy to talk about it with any of you. But if for any reason I'm depressed, I don't want to talk about it. That's the reality. And this is the reality starting from CEO downwards. All of us, all the people who are that much more successful, they have these emotional ups and downs, which are that much sharp and prevalent. But for a long time in the corporate world, we are not talking about it. At least I think I see a very welcome change where people are moving, they're talking about it, they're taking care, taking help of professionals. It is being destigmatized, it is being popularized in the common discourse to the extent that, very popular actresses, they are also kind of stepping up and saying, well, look, at some point in time, I also went through this. I mean, these are all very welcome things to really recognize that this has been the unsaid chapter of corporate wellness in India so far. Now, fundamentally, what is the outcome therefore we are looking at? We are looking at the outcome where is our leadership and our productive workforce continues to remain that. And I think it is very important to recognize that preventive healthcare is always better than treatment. Because, I think the third thing I would basically say that driving a conscious wellness approach is a much better business. It makes sense business wise, it makes sense retention wise, and many of us may think, well, how it makes sense business wise, because it is probably increasing my cost. Well, the example I always like to give is that just imagine one of your senior executives is down with, let's say, something as simple as a spondylosis, and like people who are senior executives, spondylosis is a common thing. But you can't imagine something as simple and as well treatable like spondylosis results in something close to like 10,000 management man hours lost in this country every year. Now, if somebody you are paying like 1 crore per annum or 50 lakhs per annum or 60 lakhs per annum for a senior executive, you can simply do basic math. I am not even going to the opportunity cost. So I think good wellness and right conscious wellness approaches also make tremendous amount business sense. It definitely makes sense for a lot of small and medium scale organizations where I think money wise they may not be able to compete with a whole lot of bigger organizations in terms of salaries, but I think they can definitely create a wellness that gives these two messages, that this organization cares for you, and if the employees trust message and see that happening, then they also want to grow with you, because trusting and building a bond between the employer and the employee is a prerequisite to both of them growing together. And I think if we look at healthcare and wellness holistically and we do some of the response things well, then I think a lot of organizations can win the war of talent. So I'll just stop here, and I'm open for questions as we go to the next segment of the discussion. Thank you.